Hello students, I am Lalita S. Humraskar, economics teacher, BYK College of Commerce. Welcome you in online lecture series organized by GE Society's BYK College of Commerce, Nasik for class 12th and for academic year 2021-22. Today I am going to discuss with you chapter number 3A, that is demand analysis. Today I am going to discuss with you what is law of demand. Under this law of demand, I am going to discuss with you number 1 is introduction point, number 2 is a statement of the law of demand, number 3 is what are assumptions under the law of demand, number 4 is explanation of law of demand with the help of schedule and its explanation. After that, explanation of law of demand with the help of diagram and its explanation, and what are exceptions under the law of demand, and finally what are reasons for downward sloping demand curve. Let us see the introduction point. The law of demand was introduced by Professor Alfred Marshall in his book Principles of Economics, which was published in 1890. The law explains the functional relationship between price and quantity demanded. All of you know Professor Alfred Marshall is the real architect of microeconomics. He developed many microeconomic concepts in his book Principles of Economics, which was published in 1890. So the law of demand was introduced by Professor Alfred Marshall in the book Principles of Economics. And the law explains the functional relationship between two variables. And what are these two variables? They are price and quantity demanded. So this is an introduction point. Let us see the statement of the law of demand. Let us see other things remaining constant. More quantity is demanded at lower price and less quantity is demanded at higher price. Or in other words, you can say like this. Other things remaining constant. When price falls, demand rises, and when price rises, demand falls. Okay, so by keeping other things constant, there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So this is a statement of the law of demand. Symbolically, the functional relationship between demand and price is expressed as follows. Okay, functional relationship between two variables and their demand and price. So what is a functional relationship between demand and price? There is an inverse relationship between demand and price. It means when price rises, demand falls, and when price falls, demand rises. So symbolically, the functional relationship between demand and price is expressed as follows. Let us see, dx is equal to function of px. Okay, where D stands for demand for commodity, right? X stands for commodity, F stands for function, and PX stands for price of commodity X. Okay, so demand for commodity X is equal to function of PX, that is price of commodity X. Okay, so symbolically the functional relationship between demand and price is expressed as dx is equal to function of px. Let us see the assumptions under the law of demand. All of you know the statement of the law of demand. What is the statement of the law of demand? Other things remaining constant, when price falls, demand rises, and when price rises, demand falls. So there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. And what do you understand by other things remaining constant? It means law is based on certain assumptions or conditions. Okay, let us see these assumptions or condition. Number 1 is constant level of income. Constant level of income means there is no change in the income of the consumer. This is the first assumption of the law. Okay, second one is there is no change in size of population. There is no change in age structure and age composition of the population. Okay, so there is no change in size of the population. That is the second assumption under the law of demand. Let us see the third assumption. Prices of substitute goods remains constant, right? What do you understand by substitute goods? Okay, substitute goods are those goods which are competing with each other on the basis of their prices. Okay, so prices of substitute goods remains constant. That is also important assumptions under the law of demand. Let us see the next assumption under the law of demand. Prices of complementary goods remains constant. What do you understand by complementary goods? When two or more commodities are demanded to satisfy a single human want, then that good is known as a complementary good. Okay, so prices of complementary goods remain constant. That is also important assumption under the law of demand. Number 5 is there is no expectation about future changes in prices. So there are no changes in prices of goods and services in the future. That is also important assumption. Next one is there are no changes in taste, habit, preferences, fashions, etc. right, of the society. So the next one is there is no change in taxation policy. There is no rise in taxes of the government or fall in the taxes of goods and services by the government. So no change in taxation policy. So these are the assumptions on which the law of demand is based. If these assumption changes, the law will be invalid. So in microeconomics, all theories are based on certain assumptions. Okay, that is known as other things remaining constant. Now let us see the law of demand with the help of schedule. This is known as a market demand schedule. All of you know what is market demand schedule. Market demand schedule is a tabular presentation showing inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded by all consumers in the market at different prices within a given period of time. So very important thing related to law of demand is based on market demand schedule. Very important thing about the law of demand. Now let us see this market demand schedule. Two columns are given here. In first column, price of commodity X in rupees given, and in second column, quantity demanded of commodity X in kilograms given. When price is rupees 50, quantity demanded is 1 kilogram, right? When price falls to rupees 40, quantity demanded rises to 2 kilograms. Again, when price falls to rupees 30, quantity demanded rises to 3 kg. When price falls from 30 to 20, quantity demanded rises to 4 kilogram. And finally, when price falls to 10, quantity demanded rises to 5 kilograms. So it shows what? This schedule shows there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay. So market demand schedule is a schedule which shows, it is a tabular presentation showing inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded by all consumers in the market at different prices within a given period of time. Okay. Now let us see the demand curve. Let us see the explanation of law of demand with the help of demand curve. Okay, let us see on y-axis we measure price, and on x-axis we measure quantity demanded in kilograms, right? Let us see when price is rupees 50, quantity demanded is 1 kilogram. When price falls from to up to rupees 40, quantity demanded rises to 2 kilogram. When price falls to 30, quantity demanded rises to 3 kilogram. When price falls to 20, quantity demanded rises to 4 kilogram. And finally, when price falls to rupees 10, quantity demanded rises to 5 kilograms. Okay, when we join this point, we get a downward sloping demand curve, that is DD. So generally demand curve slopes downward from left to right, that is a slope of the demand curve. Now let us see what are reasons for downward sloping demand curve. Okay, why demand curve slopes downward from left to right? Let us see the first cause. First reason is law of diminishing marginal utility. All of you know the statement of the law of DMU, that is diminishing marginal utility. Other things remaining constant, as consumer consumes more and more units of commodity, its marginal utility goes on falling. That is a statement of the law of DMU right here. Okay, so therefore consumer buys more when price falls and vice versa. Therefore demand curve slopes downward from left to right. So this is the first cause for downward sloping demand curve. Okay, That is law of diminishing marginal utility. Number two is the income effect. Okay, what is the income effect? In case of normal goods, when price falls, purchasing power or real income of the consumer rises, right? Therefore, consumer buys more of that commodity. Okay, so this is known as income effect. So income effect is also responsible for downward sloping demand curve. Okay, let us see the next reason for downward sloping demand curve, that is a substitution effect. Okay, let us see what is substitution effect. In case of substitute goods, when price of commodity rises, consumer prefer to buy more of its substitute good and less of that commodity whose price is more. Okay, so this is known as what? This is known as a substitution effect. For example, tea and coffee, sugar and jaggery, Pepsi and Coke, etc. So these are the examples of substitute goods. Okay, so substitute goods, substitution effect, that is also important reason for downward sloping demand curve. Now let us see the next reason for downward sloping demand curve, multi-purpose uses. Okay, when commodity can be used for satisfying several human wants, its demand will rise with a fall in its price and fall with rise in its price. Okay, so when commodity can be used to satisfying several human wants, when we use one commodity to satisfy several human wants, okay, so their utility is a multi-purpose. Okay, so what happened here? So when a commodity can be used for satisfying several human wants, its demand will rise with a fall in its price and fall with a rise in its price. So that is also important reason for downward sloping demand curve. Next one is new consumers. Okay, when the price of commodity falls, a new consumer class exists in the market who can afford the commodity due to fall in price. Thus, the total demand for commodity increases with fall in price. So, new consumers also responsible for downward sloping demand curve, right here. So, why demand curve slopes downward from left to right? So, these are the reasons. Number one is law of diminishing marginal utility. Law of diminishing marginal utility. Number two is the income effect. Number three is the substitution effect. Number four is the multi-purpose uses. And number five is new consumers. Now let us see the exceptions under the law of demand. Okay, these are the exceptions under the law of demand. Number one is Giffen's paradox. Okay, what do you understand by Giffen goods? Giffen goods means inferior goods or low quality goods, right here. So after Robert Giffen's, inferior goods are called as a Giffen goods. Okay, so what happened in case of Giffen good? In case of these goods, demand does not rise even if their prices falls. So demand decreases when the price of such commodities falls. So Sir Robert Giffen observed this behavior in England in relation to bread. Okay, so he noted that when price of bread declined, people did not buy more because of an increase in their real income or purchasing power. So they prefer to buy superior goods. So this is known as Giffen's paradox. Okay, so Giffen's paradox, that is important exceptions under the law of demand. Number two is a prestige good or prestigious goods. What do you understand by prestige goods? Prestige goods means expensive goods like diamond, gold, etc. So rich section in the society prefers to buy this product even at higher price to maintain their status symbol in the society. So in case of prestigious good, even price is high, people prefer to buy to maintain their status in the society. Okay, so prestigious good, that is also important exceptions under the law of demand. Number three is a speculation. Okay, so what do you understand by speculation? Speculation means forecasting. The law of demand does not hold true when people expect prices to rise still further. In this case, although the prices have risen today, consumers will demand more. Let us see with the help of example. Okay, if there is a speculation about the prices of oil, sugar tend to rise in future. So people demands more today. even at a higher price. So whatever price of these products or goods today, people buys more. Okay, so speculation, that is also exception under the law of demand. Next one is price illusion, right? Consumers have illusion that high price goods means better quality. Therefore, demand for such goods tends to increase with a rise in their prices. For example, branded products which are expensive are demanded even at a higher price. Okay, so price illusion is the exception under the law of demand. Next one is a ignorance. Some people in the society do not have a knowledge about market conditions. Okay, so due to their ignorance, they buy more of a commodity even at a higher price. So ignorance is the exception in the under the law of demand. Next one is a habitual goods. Okay, some people are habitual or addicted for certain product, right? Therefore, whatever price exists in the market, they buy these products. Okay, so habitual good, that is also exception under the law of demand. Okay, so what are the exception under the law of demand? Number one is Giffen's paradox. Number two is a prestige goods. Number three is a speculation. Number four is a price illusion. Number five is a ignorance. Number six is habitual goods. Now you can see in this diagram, this is an exceptional demand curve. Okay, wow. So generally demand curve slopes downward from left to right, but in case of exception, demand curve slopes upward from left to right. Very important thing about the exceptional demand curve. Now let us see the evaluation part of this topic. What kind of question is possible in the exam in the theory paper? Let us see. Answer the following questions. This is a 4 marks question. Let us see the question. Explain law of demand. Okay, this is 4 marks question. How to write down the answer to this question? Number one is you have to write the introduction, that is being important part here. Number two is you have to write statement of the law. After that, you have to explain law of demand with the help of schedule and its explanation. Number 4 is you have to explain law of demand with the help of diagram and its explanation. And number 5, you have to mention only the names of assumptions. Okay. And finally, number 6, write only names of reasons why demand curve slopes downward. Okay, from left to right. This much you have to write, then only you will get 4 out of 4. Now let us see the next question. This is also 4 marks question. Do you agree or disagree? Give reasons. Okay, let us see the statement. Law of demand depends on assumptions. Okay, so 1 mark for writing yes I do agree or no I do not agree with the above statement. Immediately you will get here 1 mark, and 3 marks for writing reasons. So 1 plus 3 is equal to 4 marks for this question. So what is the statement here? Law of demand depends on assumptions. So what is your answer? Yes, I do agree with the above statement. Now how to write down the reasons? Yes, here number 1 is you have to write statement of the law of demand. And number 2 is explanation of assumptions in detail, that you have to explain. Okay, this much you have to write, then only marks possible to you. Next statement is price is the only determinant of demand. Okay. Yes, what is your answer here? No, I do not agree with the above statement. So price is not only determinant of demand, that you already studied in the previous video lecture. Okay, there are many determinants of demand. Price is a basic element. Other determinants are also there which affects demand. So what is your answer? No, I do not agree with the above statement. Immediately you will get here 1 mark. Then after that how to write down the reasons? Here number 1 is meaning of demand, that you have to explain. Number 2 is the explanation of any 3 determinants including price. Okay, that you have to write here. Let us see the essay type question. What kind of question is possible related to law of demand? State and explain law of demand with its assumption. This is 8 marks question and you have to cover all possible things here. Okay. Number 1 is introduction point, that is very important here. Number 2 is a statement of the law, that you have to write. Number 3, you have to explain law of demand with the help of schedule and its explanation. Number 4 is you have to explain law of demand, with the help of diagram and its explanation. After that, you have to explain what are reasons responsible for downward sloping demand curve. Number 6 is explanation of assumption in detail, that you have to explain. And finally, number 7 is write only names of exceptions. Let us see the next essay type question. State and explain law of demand with its exceptions. How to write down the answer to this question for 8 marks? Number 1 is introduction point. Number 2 is a statement of the law. Number 3 is an explanation of law of demand with the help of schedule and its explanation. Number 4 is explanation of law of demand with the help of diagram and its explanation. Number 5 is why demand curve slopes downward from left to right. You have to explain with the help of reasons. Number 6 is explanation of exceptions in detail, that you have to explain. And finally, you have to write only the names of assumption. This much you have to write. Student, what I discussed with you today, what is a law of demand. Okay, introduction point. Number 2 is a statement of the law of demand. After that, I explain law of demand with the help of schedule. After that, I explain the law of demand with the help of diagram, right? After that, I explain why demand curve slopes downward from left to right. What are the reasons behind it? That also I explain. What are assumptions under the law of demand? And finally, what are exceptions under the law of demand? And finally, thank you for listening my video lecture.